Hi there, it's Clive Linden here. Welcome to my channel. I'm glad you joined me today. So a bit of an impromptu update. I felt sort of obligated to make this video because today I'm very excited. We have the Doom Eternal specs. So the specs that Doom Eternal will be delivering on Stadia and all the other consoles. And I'm going to do a bit of a deep dive on this and talk about some thoughts around it because there seems to be a lot of chatter and conversation on the matter currently, so I thought I would give my view on things. If you're new to the channel, then please hit that like and hit the subscribe button. It'd be much appreciated. So let's get to it. So I said the Doom Eternal specs are out for Stadia and the other consoles, and on paper it looks amazing. You know, it's 1800 or 1800p upscaled to a true 4K HDR running at 60 frames per second. Those stats, let's be clear, those stats are awesome, really. It's better than the PS4 Pro and on level terms with the most powerful console in the world, the Xbox One X. There is no doubt that this game is going to look amazing, amazeballs. We already know how good games can look on Stadia in 4K. You've got Tomb Raider, which especially Shadow of the Tomb Raider looks amazing. Metro Exodus. I mean, even an upscaled Destiny 2 looks pretty good. So there's no doubt that a graphically rich game like Doom Eternal running at 4K, 60 frames per second is going to be a treat. And yet, yes, and yet, in the schoolyard world of gaming commentary and YouTubery, where my thing's better than your thing tribalism runs rife, and where every minor negative detail about Stadia is jumped on, amplified tenfold, and then erroneously repeated by 2-bit YouTubers with 2 million plus subs or something, reinforcing a fake Stadia is a flop narrative. In the face of that, Houston, we have a problem. Now, let's be very, very clear here. As I said earlier, the game is going to look awesome and play awesome on Stadia. And for us Stadia pros, it's no doubt going to be an absolute total blast. It's going to probably be one of the best looking games on Stadia, and it will be awesome. I know that. But, and here is the but, many of us, including me, in this channel here, were hoping that, as promised by the developer head Marty Stratton, that
the game will be capable of running at true 4K resolution with HDR color at an unrelenting 60 frames per second.
This was going to be the title, the AAA new release day on day with all the other consoles and PC landing on Stadia, that in that schoolyard willy waving, we as Stadia supporters would go, Doom Eternal, Stadia, true 4K at 60 frames per second. Oh, thank you. Drops mic, swaggers off. This was the big counterpunch. Yeah, to all those negative comments about Stadia, all those negative YouTubers talking about Stadia as a flop. This was the proof that Stadia was all the things it claimed it was, it was. And it still is. It still is. The facts don't change. But the Doom Eternal specs being delivered as promised by the developer on Stadia needed to be the simple punchline. Not a counter punch with minor caveats. It's not quite as impactful. So, am I disappointed? For the game, no. As if I, or most people for that matter, can tell the difference between a true native 4K experience and a slightly upgraded, almost native 4K version. Of course not. Don't be ridiculous. We're not talking here a 1080p upscale to 4K. We're talking an 1800p upscaled. You do realise that we're not talking, when 4K we don't mean 4,000 pixels. We actually mean 2160. So it's 1800 to 2160. I mean, it's a small leap. So who can really tell the difference, apart from, Digital Foundry, of course? Can you play Doom Eternal, or will you be able to play Doom Eternal any better on any other console? No. Is it as good as Xbox One X, the most powerful console in the world? Yeah. And no one's moaning in the world of Xbox One fanboys, Xbox One X fanboys specs. No one's moaning about their specs. Hell, the PS4 Pro owners are not moaning about the specs that they're getting, and they're less than we've got. And only those at the top end of the PC master race that have the rigs capable of doing this, which I think at the moment only seem to consist of Linus Tech Tips and NASA. I mean, the PC requirements to beat that level of spec that we're getting on Stadia are pretty ridiculous. And I'm sure there is a good design reason behind the specs for the consoles. And I'd rather the game looked amazing and ran at a consistent 60 frames per second than looked, a tiny bit more amazing if I'm forensically looking at it like Digital Foundry and then but drop some frames. I'd like to hear what idSoftware's decision-making approach was and some of the reasons behind it. If, for example, they said that most of the game could run at 4K 60 native 4K 60 frames per second, but there were a few areas of sort of intense graphics where the frame rate dropped a bit, and they'd rather have that, consistency, so they opted to find the optimal level with no frame drops, per second for any part of the game. Yeah, that would make sense. I mean, ultimately, none of this, of course, should matter. And in the same way that Xbox One X fans are celebrating at the prospect of playing Doom Eternal at this spec level, we as Stadia players should feel the same. It's just, it would have been nice to land that solid, clean blow. And it feels solid enough as a blow, but just not quite that clean hit that we wanted. Anyway, all things being said, you're not going to get a better experience on Stadia on any other platform, apart from a ridiculously spec'd PC aside. And the fact that even if you have a 4K HDR monitor, you can actually do this in your Chrome browser is a ridiculous concept. But please, Google Stadia, I ask you, when working with the developers, temper the overpromises and over-deliver. We need that big counterpunch feature, that killer game or app, just so the naysayers can just shut the fudge up and move on. I'm sure Stadia were disappointed when idSoftware came to them and inevitably said, look, I know we said this would be 4K, native 4K, 60 frames per second. We've made some design decisions. The game looks fantastic, but we're going to top out at 1800p. I'm sure from Stadia's point of view, that conversation probably didn't go that well. But ultimately, in the long run, what's it matter? The game will look amazing. The difference is purely numbers at the end of the day. That's what we're talking about here. It's a minuscule difference. Who the hell can tell that difference? I, for one, really looking forward to it. I'm sure you are. Let me know what you think, what your comments are, what your thoughts are about this. Does it really matter in the long run? Have we got bigger and better things coming anyway? And are we all going to have a blast playing Doom Eternal? Let me know in the comments below. Please like, subscribe, and all that. And I'll see you around. And don't forget, Monday night, Stadia chat, 11 p.m. GMT, 6 p.m. EST. And join me live when we go through all the Stadia news. That's it for now. I just wanted to share my thoughts on it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. See you soon.